Welcome everyone to Connected Learning TV and the second webinar in a month-long series on digital badges, opening new pathways to opportunities. I'm Craig Watkins, Principal Investigator of the Digital Edge Project in Austin, and a member of the Connected Learning Research Network. And I'll be your host for today's webinar. Throughout September, we are exploring the connection between digital badges and pathways to new academic and economic opportunities. Today, we're exploring how digital badges connect our interests and passions both inside and outside formal education and make lifelong learning pathways more visible. Before we dive into our chat, let's go over just a few quick details. To those of you who are participating on live stream right now, we encourage you to use the chat there to introduce yourselves, connect with each other, and ask questions that we can address here in the Google Plus Hangout. And speaking of Google Plus, there's a fast-growing connected learning community with over 2,400 members. We'd love for you to be a part of the badges conversation happening there. The link to the Google Plus community should be included in the live stream chat. And also, the link for our public group notes Google Doc for today should also be in the live stream chat by now. We'd really appreciate your energy in capturing highlights and sharing resources related to today's conversation. That Google Doc will remain open to the public so we can continue adding to it even after today. So we look forward to you sharing your thoughts and perspectives and, again, any resources that you might have. So today we're joined by, I think, a really wonderful group. Really exciting to have our Hangout members here today. And I wanted to give everyone a chance just to briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll sort of open it up and have a conversation talking about digital badges, connected learning, and pathways to opportunity. Tim?
So, yeah, I'm Tim Richards from Digital Me. We're based in England, in Leeds, a city in the north of England. We've been working on badges for a couple of years now, first as part of the Digital Media and Learning Competition to badge a program that we've been running for many years called Supporter to Reporter, which helps young people develop world work skills through the really exciting challenge of becoming a sports reporter and doing that on the web. And then more recently, we're working on a project called Badge the UK, where we're trying to connect the needs and the desires of employers with badges that we create and young people can learn. And it's just really exciting to be here today and swap notes with other people from the badge movement.
Great.
Hi, I'm Sybil Madison-Boyd. I'm with the Digital Youth Network at DePaul University here in Chicago, and I am heading up a program on learning pathways. So we're looking to examine how we can make more transparent to youth what they are interested in and passionate about, and connect that understanding to possible futures. I also was very involved in Chicago Summer of Learning, which was a massive badging initiative here in the city that basically badged a lot of the summer learning opportunities that were available to youth here in Chicago.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark Lesser. I'm the Education Director at Mouse. We are a 15-year-old youth development and design and technology program. We're founded here in New York. We run about a 4,000 youth and educator network that's national from New York to California. We started badging just before 2010 on a sort of internal platform here at Mouse, and then soon after became a supporter and member of the Open Badges community to figure out how we bring more of what we're doing to the network of folks who are interested in connecting learning experiences. We are extremely interested both in what badges mean for learner identities, but and also what badges mean for small learning organizations like ours, who are not a formal part of the K-12 institution, but are an important part of young people's lives. So thank you for having me, and really happy to be here.
Welcome everybody. My name is Alex Molina. I'm the Deputy Director for the Providence After School Alliance based at out of the biggest state in the union, Rhode Island. So we're really excited to share what we have learned in Providence. We have learned that learning happens any place, anytime, and we're working really close with a school district to ensure that young people and the learning that happens in out-of-school time is recognized. We know that the traditional way to assess learning, to assess what you know, is dragging behind. So we're working really, really close with a school district who's leaning forward and is basically saying, let's try something different. Let's ensure that young people have the ability and the space to work with everybody. So we're going to continue to work this, to formalize this process, and to ensure that young people get recognized for what they're doing out of school time, which we know sometimes is more rigorous and to some extent is based on their passion. So this is, we see in digital badges, a way to recognize young people, their passion, and to ensure they have something that engages and eventually can lead to whatever they want it to be. And that's what we're going to do in Rhode Island. And hopefully I'm here to share this with the rest of you guys.
Okay, great, fantastic. Thank you, everyone. And so I thought maybe we could just open it up with kind of not necessarily defining terms, because that's always a tricky proposition. But one of the things that I think the series will really prompt sort of a broad conversation around is how do we expand not only notions of learning, but also the role that badges might play in terms of expanding pathways to opportunity, learning pathways to opportunity. So it might be useful for us to, as part of our framing of our conversation here, maybe just to take a bit of time thinking out loud about how each of us perhaps think about learning pathways in our own work in respect to badges, and more importantly, what, if in any way, or how, if in any way, do the pathways that we think about, imagine, construct, would like to see our kids have access to, how does it differ from more traditional kinds of learning pathways? Anyone want to perhaps take a stab at thinking out loud about that?
Well, if you want, I can start and talk about what we're thinking here in Providence. We know PASO has worked really close with the school district for about 10 years now. First creating a middle school system to provide young people access to opportunities, high quality after school opportunities. Now with our high school program, we're doing the same. So the way we see in pathways is, how do we provide young people with opportunity to explore their career options, to one session become a photographer, the next session become a baseball player, and the following section become a scientist. So allowing young people to build their own pathways. And what digital badges kind of lets us know that young people are getting those skills. We have spoken a lot to different industry leaders in our state, and they're saying, we're looking for people to hire. They have the skills, that they are critical thinkers, that can work as a team, they're resilient. And we know that right now, traditional schools, we're not measuring those things. So in the way we see creating pathways, it's allowing young people to demonstrate, to learn, and to practice the skills in high quality experience in out of school time. The digital badge is recognizing that learning that happens. The digital badge is recognizing the young people are attracted to something bigger. So we know that a young person is not going to take a computer class in our school district. It's not there. But in out of school time, they can actually find their passion. And we can tell as a system, as a city, that a young person may be attracted into computer science at an early stage. So we're providing those supports for a young person to make their own informed decisions and to create their own pathways. So that's what we see pathways in a city. In a city that's coming together, to provide young people the right resources to create their pathways. We're just giving them the right tools.
Great, thank you.
I agree with everything that Alejandro is saying, and I would say that pathways give youth the opportunity to try out different identities. We work largely with adolescents, and we know that learning is really an identity endeavor, and for many of our youth, especially those who are disaffected or maybe not seen in terms of their full potential in a traditional school setting, these opportunities outside of school provide them with different identities that they can play out. So they can, as Alejandro was saying, they can see, what do I like photography? What would it mean to be a photographer in my future? Or let me try video, whatever these offerings might provide. So I think the pathways can help young people see some of the routes towards future possibilities, and I think the badges kind of serve as markers along those routes. And I think that in a traditional setting, sometimes those pathways are determined by people other than the youth. right? Because we have things like tracking systems, or and so there are routes to college, and then there are routes to other things. And I think that the way that we're thinking and talking about pathways now enables youth to kind of play around with a couple of different kind of ways to go and start to craft those pathways themselves. And we're trying to find ways to make sure that all the adults in their lives understand what the identities that they're playing with, and support them along that way. But I think the way that we're talking about pathways, especially with badges, gives the youth more agency and kind of power to start to craft those pathways themselves.
I would just plus one what Sybil just said. I think is right in so many ways, and I think the mistake that in a lot of ways, I think the mistake we've made so far, whether we know it or not, is that we tell a story to young people, especially the kinds of young people that you know, in the neighborhoods and cities that we serve. We tell a story that's very linear about what success looks like, and I think that linear story is based in large part on the K-12 system, and you're either on that track or you're not. And what I think most professionals know is that actually success is very nonlinear, and that the way that Sybil is describing, it's very much about testing out identities and taking a job to see what about it are the things you think you want to keep doing, and what about it are the things you know you don't see yourself doing in the future. So I think that the mistake we've been making, and not always with bad intentions, but the story we've been setting up is a very linear one, and we need to find devices and levers that help young people see a nonlinear story as being an empowering thing, and as one that's the right path, and not you know, and not wandering for wandering's sake necessarily.
I'm going to just add in there as well. I'm +1 again. I pretty much, it's one of those panels, isn't it, where everyone's going to agree with each other about, you know, people have to follow their passion, people to follow their curiosity and try on different roles. All of that makes sense. I mean, I've just been thinking recently about learning pathways, and thinking about them in terms of a series of decision points along the way of a user journey. So, you know, we've got this kind of old way, which some of you guys have already described. I mean, basically, what a sort of really content-heavy, top-down curriculum. The learners are expected to absorb that information and then memorize it, and then regurgitate that. Just as a memory exercise or as a comprehension exercise, and that's our kind of standard view of learning. You get that qualification, and then you get that job. I was just thinking about, you know, the way that changes when you throw the web into this, and thinking about that from different perspectives. Thinking about that from an earning perspective of a badge, an issue, and a consumer. So, you know, from the earner's point of view, you know, they're making the decision. You're empowering them to make the decision to follow their own curiosity and choose a badge or a course, or even a game or an exploration which leads to the issuing of a badge. And then there's another decision which takes place from the issuer, and of course that can be a machine that issues your badge. It doesn't have to be a human being. You know, it could be a peer. Or it could be a teacher, and the way that loops back then to the earner, and then is publicly displayed, just changes things completely in terms of your learning pathway, because it introduces people who are consuming the badges and that can make decisions again based upon that badge. So, for example, you know, an employer making a decision based on actually someone who might have the skills which are really relevant to you, the skills that you're looking for, and having just gone through a sort of interviewing process, you know, you have to filter through all these CVs, and you don't get the actual skills you're looking for, or someone wanting to collaborate, or someone in the community wanting to feed back. So I just think it adds this way of thinking about badges, not just badges, but adding the web into that and the social context, adds a huge complexity, but a really exciting value both to the earner, the person issuing those badges, organisations like ourselves and Mouse, and also to people who can offer opportunities, real opportunities to young people as well.
Great. So I know each of you are involved in some innovative, local, dynamic attempts to really implement badges in robust and meaningful ways. And I thought this might be a really great opportunity, perhaps for you to share a story or something that surprises you. But what makes you hopeful that we're headed in the right direction by building digital badges as part of a lifelong learning culture in our various fields as educators?
So I'm happy to start the conversation. So I think it's really tempting. A big part of the conversation around badges has had a lot of there's a lot of fear and thinking about well if this, then what are we sacrificing? And I think that one of the really important things about badges is that it is about experimentation, and it is about chasing down some hunches about learning that I think a lot of us have as instincts in designing learning environments and as educators that we often don't get to test out. So the story I'd share as an extremely hopeful one relates to peer-to-peer badging, right? So Mouse has been really invested in the idea that in part, one of the affordances of badges is to help young people become a part of the assessment process in a way that they haven't necessarily been invited to do in the context of what they're doing in school, and we think that's really important, right? So in part because if we're mirroring professional environments in the programming that we offer, what we want to do is mirror what is actually happening in professional environments where coworkers and mentors within the workspace are as much a part of the assessment of work product and performance as your bosses, right? So we saw peer-to-peer badging as this opportunity to test out the hunch that young people are engaged by an identity as an expert, right? And an identity that values their feedback on one another's work, right? So we spent, as part of the DML competition, we spent about 10 months developing a peer-to-peer badging system that would enable, we started really small, to enable young people essentially to award a series of badges to one another based on a single work product. So we would release a monthly creative technology project across our network and say, create an avatar, hack a web page, and any of those kinds of things, and essentially serve up their work product and enable one another to value or give feedback on that product. And so we spent 10 months developing the thing, and of course one of the huge concerns for us was, if we do this, does it essentially just give an open ticket to flame one another and for them to become overly critical, and does it actually sort of halt the learning process rather than spurring it along? And all of those things were concerns, and the benefit of who we are as an organization is that we tend to default to trusting learners and trusting young people, and go from there. And in what we experience and learn, we tend to then take a new tack depending on what we see. We released the system in February of this year. And within about 3 weeks, we had across our network, we had over 400 badges issued from peer to peer. And one of the things that was a feature of the system is obviously you couldn't just award a badge. You had to categorize the badge. Are you giving feedback based on creativity, technical savvy? Is this person just an inspiration to your work? And then you had to say why. And there were obviously character limits to the amount of feedback they could give and that sort of stuff. So kind of a long story, but the great news to me and the really hopeful news to me is that we literally did not take a single, out of those 400 awarded badges, we didn't take a single post down from our site. Every one of them was meaningful in some way, and in fact, when we look through that data, young people we found were so ready to step up as experts in their own learning environments to say, hey, I've used this tool before. What you're doing is great. Have you thought of this? I really love the way you used X. So as motivators and as serious sort of features in the assessment process, young people were very ready to step up, and I think that one of the things that makes me really hopeful about badges is it gives us an opportunity to create some experiments like that, and see how things pan out, and decide, based on actual experience where to from here.
Yeah,
go ahead, Sybil. Go
sorry,
ahead.
Alejandro.
Okay.
Just a story from Chicago Summer of Learning. For those who don't know, in Chicago we had a big badge initiative here this past summer. Over 100 organizations participated and badged the learning offerings that they were providing over the summer. And we made those offerings visible on a website, and young people could pursue badges and level up to some higher level challenges that had been designed with kind of multiple badges in mind. And there was a young person who participated in a program at the Chicago Architecture Foundation. His teacher had found out about Chicago Summer of Learning and pointed him in that direction. He was part of a week-long activity where the kids who were part of that program were redesigning a specific site in Chicago and working with architects who had come in from Toronto to work with the youth. And I talked to one of the mentors in the program, and this student was successful, earned all the badges related to that. And she said, we noticed that when he came that, on the face of things, you would say that this was a young person who is perhaps, lacking some of the skills that you might think were important to participate in a week-long program organized around architecture. But because this was an experience that was open to anybody, he was able to get activated. And she said of all the students there, he was just amazing in terms of his ability to employ design thinking. And at the end of the program, this student was saying, what's next? What's next? What can I do next? And I think it's just an example of a couple of things. One, if Chicago Architecture Foundation had reached out to schools and said, can you identify some students who would be right for this program? This student probably wouldn't have been identified because, he still had some development to do in terms of math skills and all of that. But going through this experience and earning this badge, this student now understands that he does have skills and knowledge that are applicable to the field of architecture. And kind of related to what Mark was saying, through this process was able to build some capital, some social capital, because he was with peers from all over the city. They're able to see each other's work and give each other feedback. Some cultural capital, he can go back to the school and say, I was in the program at the Chicago Architecture Foundation. And I think that helps the adults at school view him a little bit differently. And ultimately, we think that these badges can provide, real academic capital in terms of providing students with an opportunity to earn credit or, at the very least, be acknowledged across spaces. So not just in this out-of-school program, but in school for the knowledge and skills that they're developing. So I think that story, it's one that we tell over and over again about a young person who was activated by a program that was badged, but now is leaving with the badges representing, I guess, all forms of capital that he's gained, not the least of which, too, were all the new mentors and adults who now are kind of supporting this young person and really discovering what he's interested in and talented at.
So thank you for that story. I was going to share something similar, but now I'll share something else. We truly believe at PASA and in Rhode Island that in order for badges to have an impact, we need to formalize the process. We know this movement is grassroots, and we want to keep it that way so it doesn't lose some of its essence. However, I remember when we first started badging, working with our ex-director of high school initiatives, Damien Evans, who left to start Coterie, and we still work with them. They've been fantastic on working with us to create our website. But just talking about the website, talking about badges, we got this awkward look by everybody. You know, what do you mean badges? What is this? It's an online resume. What is this? Fast forward to now, we were invited by the Department of Ed, Rhode Island Department of Ed, to do a presentation on badges and to really talk about how technology and badges is really assessing and allowing young people to showcase their learning. So that's something that we have come a long, long way for the Department of Ed, for in our state, to say, you know what, there's something there. We're assessing learning in the wrong ways. We're assessing we're assessing skills completely the wrong way. Young people are dropping out of schools. How can digital badges, technologies can help us assess learning? Going back to the point, our young people who obtain badges are getting credit for their out-of-school time experience here in Providence. And the school district wants to expand this. The Department of Ed wants to know how can you explore this. All the school districts can try the same thing. Because at the end of the day, what's happening is it's allowing, and not only young people, I think this is anybody, an adult, learning doesn't stop. Think about how boring the world would be if you knew everything. I always learn something new. I learned about Google Hangout today. So the idea that learning doesn't stop is the idea the Department of Ed is getting, is the idea that our higher ed institutions are actually getting. They're saying, you know what, you're right. Learning happens anywhere, anytime. And what we're doing here at PASA is formalizing the process, having the quality tools to assess the learning, having the right documents, the right contracts to make sure everything happens. And now it's happening that the school district wants to expand this, and our Department of Ed is asking us to present to them to let them know how can they explore, how can they bring some of the things we have created to all the school districts. So for me, that's something I wanted to share, and it's something that's come with a lot of hard work, and we're going to continue to work with Coterie. We're going to continue to expand because it's all brand new, so we don't know where we're going. So hopefully we'll make a big impact in Rhode Island, and we'll be glad to share everything we learn.
So we have a few questions that are have been shared with us from live stream, and I thought we might try to integrate at least one, if not a couple, into our conversation here. Let me pose this one to the Hangout. And this is, again, coming from live stream, sort of a reference to some of the programs that have been mentioned here already via our Hangout. Are there any existing or formal ways to encourage schools to recognize badges, or are we currently relying on young people showing their parents and teachers what they're doing?
I can speak on Providence. We get this question all the time. How did you get the school district to accept your badges? And what I keep telling people, that was something that happened for PASA, working closely with the school district for about 8 years to build trust, to build that relationship, to ensure we had the right protocols and procedures in place to showcase, to tell the school district that this experience is actually really, really valuable. So it doesn't have to take that long, and all the school districts is gaining best practices and saying, hey, in Providence, they're using X, Y, and Z to showcase, to assess this learning. We could do that same. In other states, they're doing this to assess the learning. So for us, it's been really critical to work closer with the school district, but also to work closer with principals, with our community providers, and parents. So it's a grassroots and grassroots strategy to meet halfway. So that has really worked in Rhode Island. And knowing that, to be honest, a lot of hard work to convince people to come out and see the programs and actually see for the first time quality instruction, quality experiences. So it's a lot of legwork, a lot of meetings, a lot of coffee dates to actually get people to trust you, to value what you do. And then now the final stage is formalizing, having MOUs with the school district, having a formal contract with the city to saying this is what we want, having a formal planning process to say, hey, we want to grow ELOs and badges to every high school. How do we get there? How do we fundraise together? So it takes a little while. And for us, it took the fact that we have worked with the school district to build a middle school system now. And now we built the high school system. Now we're looking to create these pathways to badge programs in middle school and in high school, and to allow young people, once again, to explore their passions.
In Chicago, we're not there yet, so we'll be following in Pasa's footsteps, but I do know that the mayor here wants to move in that direction, where learning that happens outside of school would count inside of school, and that badges would be kind of the, would hold that currency across those spaces.
So another question that emerges from the live stream sort of points to, you know, what populations and constituencies are we engaging around badges? And it seems, and this is the question, it seems that most of the conversation around badges tends to focus on young people. Are youth an inherent target for badges, or are digital badges potentially useful for adults as well? And there may have been some references to that, but perhaps we might want to just address that question more directly. Anyone?
I mean, from our organisation's point of view, you know, we are focused on youth. But I suppose where it links back into adult communities is a couple of directions. One is through through endorsers. So, for example, we're creating a number of different programs at the moment with recognised brands who want to, you know, they've recognised the skills gap. They want a particular skill to be learnt in school. Let's say it's HTML5 or whatever, and there's an opportunity, I think, to badge back to the employees who volunteer into those schemes. So I think that's one way. And the other thing for us is working with families and parents as well. So there's one program we're working on. It's called the SAFE program, and it's about safe social networking. And rather than kind of showing kids scary videos and telling them not to use the internet, it's about building a good internal capacity to make good decisions about your privacy and how you connect and share online. Now, actually, one of the barriers to e-safety education is the parents. You know, they feel scared and reticent about the internet. So either think, put a filtering program on, which they'll have to probably get their teenage son to help them install because they can't figure it out. Or they need to learn some of those skills. I think there are two ways that we're connecting through to adults. But I mean, obviously, to stress from terms of open badges, it's very much about lifelong learning. But just from our organisation's point of view, we're focused on youth.
Yeah, same. You know, for Mouse, obviously, we're very focused on you know, middle and high school age ranges, but as a member, you know, answering the question more from just as a member of the community, the Open Badges community, and folks who've been talking about this for a long time, I think that the vision for badges, not only does it also apply to adults. I think that in order for the vision to be fulfilled in its truest form, and as a vehicle for connected and lifelong learning, I think in fact it needs to be as much about adults and lifelong learning as it is about learning at an early age. I think coincidentally we have a panel of folks who are really committed to you know, the youth in the K-12 range, but you know, as just a member of the community, I think yes, absolutely, it's about adults, and in fact I think that in order for our system and the efforts that we're making to you know, seed part of this ecosystem, I think that that vision for our organization and the point of life that we're trying to impact to be realized completely, I think the rest of the ecosystem for adults and learners at other stages needs to continue to be filled out. Otherwise, if badges are a thing that you kind of stick in the back of your whatever backpack or digital footprint, once you hit college or once you graduate college, then I don't think we've succeeded.
Yeah, I think we all happen to be folks who are focused on youth, but this is for a broader community, and the Clinton Global Initiative did announce a call for 2 million better futures that actually is focused on badging and pathways for adults, and I think there's a particular interest in how this might help specific communities like veterans who have a lot of knowledge and skills that are not acknowledged in any other way, and can be used to help them in the job market.
So a lot of what we've heard about here today, understandably so, kind of relates to out-of-school organizations and how they're beginning to mobilize their resources and expertise to open up these new pathways that we've alluded to. So just imagine for a moment if you are someone who manages or supervises or has created an out-of-school organization in a space for young people, adults to come and learn, and you're interested in badges, but you've never really assessed out-of-school learning before. Currently, you perhaps lack the infrastructure or the bandwidth to issue badges. What would we say to them in terms of what their options might be for participating in badging programs, for just getting started in this space and beginning to open up this as an opportunity for their community?
One place I think I think it's always good to just pause, just when you think about creating badges, and just have a dive into the design process. We've produced a tool called the Badge Design Canvas, which is free for anyone to download and access. And we found that it really helps organizations to unpick the building blocks of what makes a good badge. So thinking about, what's the central value proposition for your earner. We're so used to dealing with fixed curriculum, and so it's quite novel to think about, well, what's that actually going to mean for that young person if they earn that badge? And that's related to the whole question around the value of badges as well. And then thinking about how we get that value proposition to those users, who might endorse that badge, etc. So that's a good place to start, I think, in terms of designing what we call sort of a good badge. And in terms of sort of in the UK, people from schools are very welcome to access the badge, the UK project, but that's for school age. But if you wanted to get involved in, if there's sort of lifelong learning badges, there are a set of free tools out there which you can use already. So you can, once you've designed your badge, you can easily start issuing it through things like Badgers, through the WordPress plugin, etc. So there are a number of sort of tools available in terms of design and technology, just to get you started really quickly.
Yeah, I'll piggyback from there. I think for, especially in the United States, any local out-of-school time agency, there's plenty of assessment tools out there. There's definitely organizations who are leading the way in every state. But taking a step back, I will definitely ask them to think exactly what they want to badge. What are the learning experiences in their programs they're looking to badge? And I think that's ideal. Badging doesn't mean anything if you're going to badge everything. You really have to be specific to make sure we're going to learn these specific goals that young people will get after X experience. From there, we're going to ensure that our facilitators or our instructors are actually navigating young people through this experience, so they ensure that young people are practicing those skills. So that'll be a way to start. What do you want young people to get, or not even young people, anybody at the end of this experience, how long it may be, and what tools are you going to use to assess that the learning happened? What evidence do the young people or the adults need to demonstrate that they got it? And after that, you can badge. It could be as simple as that. And I think that's the beauty of badges. The beauty in the way we're seeing it here is it's lack of a better word, it's another way to assess learning. And it's a little bit more free. It allows for dynamic interaction to happen, and I think even more allows for young people and adults in general to get caught up with technology. Nowadays, I think resume is a great idea, but digital badges is the way of the future to really be able to display your skills. And once again, to really tell a story that, yes, I gained the skills by doing this or by doing that. And I think that's the beauty. So I will tell any organization to first think about exactly what the program is trying to accomplish, what skills the people who participate in the program are going to get, and how you're going to assess it, and how you're going to ensure that those individuals got those skills, and then the badge comes after.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. Here in Chicago, as part of Chicago Summer of Learning, as we debrief some of our experiences with our out-of-school time providers, that was the one thing that came up over and over again, that we don't want to focus so much on the badge and what the badge looks like and designing the badge that we forget that this is really about learning. And that it's about the youth's learning experience and what they actually gained from that experience. So starting with that, what do you expect young people to get out of this experience? How do you know? And that speaks to the assessment. And then, you know, thinking about how you package that into a badge. I would also add, oh, I'm losing my train of thought, but yeah, we just kept coming back to it's really about the learning experience, and the badge indicates or signifies that for the youth. So starting with that.
Two really quick things that I'd add to that is one for organizations interested. I always start with helping them realize that a paper and scissors exercise is very much worth while, and thinking about badges offline before they're thinking about badging experiences online, I think is super important and a way to play out just an early iteration or prototype of the idea. And then I think it's really easy to underestimate what badging means, especially in the context of a lot of free tools that are surfacing, which I think are terrific. The double edge to that, I think, is that it keeps people from fully realizing the kind of resources that it takes to set up a badging system for a learning program, and so I would make sure that as an organization you've done a really good resource mapping and think about do you have the support of whether you're in a school, a university, a small organization like ours, do you have the support that you need? And that goes from not only policy-making support, but also do you have the server space you need? Do you have the design skills that you need? Because I think scratching the surface is one thing, and people can do that pretty quickly. But I think if making a serious attempt at badges for learning, I think requires real resources, and it's important that people know that going in.
No, I think that's an excellent point. Thank you. So one of the things that really excites me about this conversation about badges is what it contributes to a larger kind of reimagination of what future opportunities might look like. And we know that opportunity structures in today's world they're evolving literally as we speak. So as we think about better futures, as we think about expanded opportunities, what do you see the role that badges can play, badging programs, these sites and forms and expressions, these practices of learning that you're identifying? How do they become tangible, hands-on, real deliverable ways of sort of paving new pathways to opportunity in a 21st century world?
I can start. In Rhode Island, we're really thinking about how young people have opportunities at the end of their career in high school, whether they choose to go to college or they choose to go to work. Real opportunities. We have 2 colleges, universities in Rhode Island accepting the digital badges, saying, oh my God, this is amazing. We get tons of applications, tons of resumes where a young person writes, I did an internship. We have no idea what they did. With a digital badge now, they can click on it, they can see the evidence, they know exactly what it meant, that experience, especially being backed by PASA. In addition, we're working, and this is early stages, we're working closer with a lot of industry leaders in Rhode Island who are looking for people to hire. They keep saying, we don't have the employees with these skills. The digital badges is actually going to allow these young people to get well-paying jobs because they're going to be able to demonstrate skills that currently the school system is not tracking or validating. Badges are allowing young people to showcase that they have those skills. We keep talking with them, they're saying they just want people who are critical thinkers, who are able to work in a team, who can, persevere. So we're working close with those industry leaders to unpack what that means, to hopefully give digital badges to young people and they'll be able to get those jobs. So we're creating real concrete pathways, real concrete outputs from the digital badges. In addition, we're working closely, and just started right now, the governance workforce development. And they're looking at those skills. They're saying those are the skills that we keep hearing that people want. How can we work with PASA to ensure those badges could be used for young people to either apply for college, but even more, if they choose not to go to college, can they get use a digital badge to get a job in a high-tech field that pays well? We know that in Rhode Island especially, being an industrial city, it's an industrial state, well, those factory jobs have left. We have new high-tech jobs. Some of those high-tech jobs, people may not need to go to college, but young people in the urban core do not have the opportunities to actually apply for those jobs. Via digital badges, if we get this right, they're going to be able to apply, connect them with those industry leaders, and will lead to jobs. And we're making changing the way young people perceive their future. They have real options that are meaningful now. And I think that's what we're thinking in Rhode Island, how we're going to shift and actually provide real concrete experiences for young people.
That's great.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I mean, one thing we've been thinking about recently is how the value of learning might be shifting, and thinking about looking at something like the long tail theory and then applying that to learning. So at the moment we've got these kind of blockbuster learning opportunities, which could be the kind of the sort of mainstream curriculum. But actually, basically what the long tail model says is that culture and economics are kind of shifting away from those few blockbusters into a number of kind of niches. So, we could imagine the fixed curriculum, the maths, the English, the science being the 30% of value. And then along this kind of tail, we could have a number of different opportunities which had value locally. So, for example, in Sheffield, it's a northern city in the UK, its population of about 500,000, and it has a real sort of industrial heritage to it, and a number of companies have got together there to define a learning course. It's called Passport to Employment. It's not an open badges thing at the moment, but they've defined those skills like critical thinking, for example, teamwork, creativity, problem solving. And industries within that particular location have guaranteed anyone who goes through that passport will be guaranteed an interview with one of those companies. So rather than thinking about the old model of a kind of a qualification that gets you into a job, we're thinking about localized niches of value. And I think the same applies to things like coding as well. I don't think we'll ever see that value pathway of the real fixed qualifications moving anytime soon. But actually, I think what we might move to is a combination between those big qualifications and then niches of learning, which add up to more value than that 30%, if that makes sense.
It does. So we spent a lot of time discussing and thinking about, and for many of you, implementing digital badges in learning environments. Just curious, in terms of the future of digital badges, what frightens you? What fears do you have about how badges might be applied, how they're being interpreted? Any thoughts about things that concern you about the rollout and the conversation emerging around badging?
Well, silence. Well, apart from kind of rocking back and forth in a darkened room with a kind of intense case of monomania, just sort of mumbling badges to myself, I certainly don't feel like that's going to happen after this conversation this afternoon. I think the main thing I'm concerned about is the consumer piece. So there's obviously loads of great work going on. It's great to hear from Mark, and the stuff that's happening with Mouse and the Chicago project. There's great stuff going on with earning, with issuing, with local partnerships, but it's the consumption of badges that will bring the real value, whether it's local employers or colleges, whether it leads to work experience and volunteering, etc. And I think that's probably the most difficult thing to solve, but in the meantime, I think we just make lots of badges, get lots of badges into the backpack so we have some of that data, and then I think those partnerships, well, they already are emerging, but it is the thing that concerns me and the thing that we're working on really hard at the moment to get those real opportunities for young people.
I think for me is access and equity. This is great. It's still grassroots. If badges becomes the new assessment tool, what would happen to the urban core? What would happen to individuals who may not have access to technology, or just cities that may not be ready for this? So that's my real concern. Right now, it's still new. It's still fantastic. I know we got Chicago, New York, and Providence, urban areas that are developing these badges. But if it catches on, are we going to leave the people that need this the most behind again? So that's one of the issues that I have. If badges continue to grow and it becomes the norm, you're talking about other issues that school districts, urban school districts may not be able to support this. So something to think about.
Yeah, I would second what Alejandro said. Craig, you mentioned opportunity structures constantly evolving, and I think that badges has the potential to provide access to, especially to groups that are under-resourced and maybe in traditional settings and contexts are disadvantaged. But I would worry that that we see a shift and things get reproduced yet again. And those groups fail to have access to those opportunities.
I think I don't disagree with anything that's been said. Unfortunately, I know we're looking for naysayers, but I think what Tim put out there as the in a nugget, the consumption of badges is such an interesting challenge. Within a year of our working on badging and the open badges community getting started and everything else, my 3-year-old was earning a Disney Chuggington badge on for watching a series of episodes of Chuggington on his iPad. So I think it's a real issue, but I don't think that we can be put off by the fact that there are going to be great instances of badges and there are going to be less great instances of badges. I think that for educators, the consumption of badges needs to remain the consumption of experiences and not the consumption of graphics and the things we're going to tie to them, right? So I think if we stick to that, I think it's huge, and I think my biggest fear overall is that with any good design problem, you always run the risk of designing solutions that end up looking a lot like the original problem. And I think that we have the problem of duplicating an institution and patterns in the institution that are already broken, and we just need to. Alejandro said earlier that it's as much about grassroots, and I think that's absolutely right. I think grassroots and badging need to continue to be one in the same, because I think our effort on the whole is about fixing a system that's really broken. So duplication is a huge fear that I have.
So on the flip side, as we sort of think about just the future of badging, what's the future that makes you want to continue trying things related to badges?
I mean, for us, I think it's an idea that still makes sense. It still makes sense to everyone that we speak to, whether it's employers saying that they are not getting candidates with the right skills, whether it's the earners we're talking to, the students who are just saying they're really excited about getting a badge and they're really excited about showing their friends, or the teachers who feel empowered to recognise learning, and kind of that's why they went into teaching, and they're kind of succeeding in spite of a curriculum. So to me, it just seems to make sense as an idea still, and you just constantly meet people who are building parts of this value in the UK and internationally, which is it's really, really exciting to be part of that.
I think for me, it's about the young people. Going back to your point, Tim, young people. Young people are doing great things out of school time. Young people are doing great things for their community, and it's time for us to actually acknowledge that. And I think that's what keeps me going. We can't replicate a broken system, but we can show a broken system that good things are still happening when adults actually come together, and adults, we share our toys in the sandbox. So that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, the same for me. I think that badges and particularly learning pathways can help activate in youth just a sense of their own potential, and that's what keeps me invested in this work.
I think we're at a really unique point in time where we have a potential future where types of learning that previously didn't get the cred that they deserved are going to be valued, and valued in some cases over institutional learning, and in some cases alongside. And I think the future that makes me really excited is that and for someone who's spent a good part of their work helping in the non-formal learning space, helping educators see the value of those spaces that are completely evident to the learners themselves. That future really excites me, not only for the young people that we serve, but it excites me for me, for professionals who are going to be out there earning badges online or from peers or in their communities in lots of different ways, and being able to attach them to their identity in ways that help them continue learning beyond their first or second or third career, right?
Yeah, this is great. And I mean, as I'm just sort of sitting here, I've been taking a lot of notes, actually. I think this has been really informative. And I think one of the things that's happening with the work that each of you are doing and some of the examples that you've shared is that it's sort of not only expanding kind of where, when, and how learning takes place, but something that we're finding in our research with the Connected Learning Research Network is particularly for youth who come from poor resource communities, sort of expanding their opportunities to grow and accumulate social and cultural capital are really important. I think a number of the examples that you've shared with us today really kind of highlight that in terms of helping young people develop their networks, helping them to sort of identify similar peers who share same kinds of interests and passions. And so this really is about helping young people become the architects, or at least the co-architects, of their potential better futures. And to the extent that badges, right, can play a very creative and dynamic role in that world, I think we all stand to sort of benefit from that. So thank you again for just sharing your insights, practices, and experiences with us. And we're looking forward to certainly continuing this conversation in the series as it moves forward. So by tomorrow, as we wrap up here today, we should have a full recording of this webinar and other curated content up on www.connectedlearning.tv that you can share with your networks. This wraps up our second webinar of this month-long series, but that doesn't mean our conversations have to end here. This Thursday from 4 to 5 Pacific Time, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be hosting a Twitter chat using the hashtag DML badges to talk about insights from the Chicago Summer of Learning event that took place these past couple of months, and Sybil made a number of references to that experiment. We encourage everyone to keep this energy going by using the Twitter hashtag DML badges and hashtag Connected Learning throughout the month, and by getting involved in the Connected Learning Google Plus community. Next Tuesday, we'll have another webinar and chat right here on live stream on how badges help learners publicize their out-of-school learning and interest-based skills. Check out www.connectedlearning.tv for more information. Thanks again, everyone, and have a very nice day.
Thanks, everyone.
So long.
Thank you.